What are some ridiculously easy and interesting hobbies that no one knows about? Origami. The paper is cheap and at its simplest the models are so easy almost anyone can make them, but if you want to challenge yourself they can get insanely complex. John Montrose and Robert J. Lang's books are particularly good for providing a range of models from so easy I could fold it with my butt to how the hell is it even possible to do this with a sheet of paper. I spent so much time with their collaborative Origami Under the Sea book as a kid that my copy was literally falling apart. I totally get you, mate. I think it's just the case that a huge majority of people who do origami initially learned through books, and we look up online resources specific to the model we're currently trying to fold rather than actively follow a series of video tutorials of random models. It's really only at the intermediate stage of complexity and beyond where video reference is truly useful, because that's when 2D diagrams start getting harder to translate into 3D actions. When you're at that stage you're definitely no longer a beginner though. Chances are, I could be totally wrong about this, that no one will point you to any particularly good channels to start out, because it's honestly so incredibly easy to get started that I don't know how any content creator would distinguish themselves as being better than another when it comes to beginner tutorials. It's an incredibly complex origami dragon that's notorious in the community for being ridiculously difficult to fold. It involves a lot of tessellation, a repeated pattern, for the scales that needs meticulous attention to detail, and some stupidly difficult collapses. Sometimes in origami, you can't fold certain steps one by one. Rather, you need to pre-crease your paper and all the folds sort of happen simultaneously to come together in a certain way. They can be really difficult to manage. I'd strongly encourage you to Google rigid origami. It'll blow your mind. Remember, what you'll see has been made from a single piece of paper. No cutting or gluing, just folding. Edit. Looks like this is one of the rarer models that does involve glue, but it doesn't in any way detract from how incredulous the endeavor to fold one is. Going to the library and renting whatever book you feel like in the moment. It's super fun and free too. Yeah, I'll be surprised what kind of subjects you actually become very interested in. What type of books you can get lost in. It's liberating and fulfilling to read books when you don't have to. Edit. Whoops, didn't realize I passed for hobbies no one knows about. I'll just leave the comment here still, in case it's the nudge someone needs to rediscover their love for books. The library lol. Have you ever looked at Dublin, Ireland? It's a goddamn nightmare ATM, and I don't doubt any given Redditor could do a better job planning public transport than the government currently is. The best bit was they created 2 tram lines that converged on the city centre but terminated about a mile from each other. Dumbest thing ever. It took a decade to link them together. Totally Irish approach. Aw sure, can't you walk to the other stop? It will be good for you. And sure, isn't there about 40 pubs on the way to Loss? I make chain mail. Think of the shirts of metal rings that medieval knights used to wear. Modern mailing can make pretty much anything. There's also tons of different weaves that you can do. Right now, I'm making a scalar mail purse for my wife, but I've also made tons of chain mail drawstring bags, dice bags. I've made pieces of art for my kids, and I've also made myself a steel vest. All you need to get started is some rings, and 2 pairs of pliers. If you want to start right now, head to your local hardware store, buy some 18-gauge copper wire. Wrap that wire around a circular rod, then cut it the wire so that it creates little rings. You can make copper chainmail by hand because it's so soft. ETA. I've been asked for some examples, so here's a small sample of things I've made over the last year. https://imgur.com/a/meta-illo. Also, I do sell this stuff, mostly just so that I can continue to feed the habit. If anyone is interested, feel free to email me at silverthunderchainmail@gmail.com. RC cars. Picked it up over quarantine. Gets you out of the house and walking around. It's got something for everyone. Like to go fast, you got circuit, drag racing. Like to go slow and technical, they got crawling. Like to just mess around and do cool tricks, there is bashing. Maintaining a car isn't hard with just some basic cheap tools. It also teaches you mechanics and some electrical work, as well as trains your reflexes. If you don't want to deal with it, most hobby stores will do it for a price. Geocaching, a real-world treasure hunt that has players finding and discovering containers placed by other players. All you need is a pen and a smartphone, and you're basically set. Wife and I started geocaching a couple of months ago. Wish we would have started decades ago. Having a lot of fun, and it takes us to places we wouldn't normally go. We're up to 42. Found and only half a dozen DNFs. Mind you, we tried a 4.50 to 5 difficulty yesterday and gave up after 20 minutes. Highly recommend to anyone, but especially young families. Kids love the hunter and it's a great outdoor binding activity. Our daughter got us started. For next time, the harder difficulty ones usually require climbing or crossing water, etc. Smile. One we did when we first started out was hidden in a bolt at a beach lookout, with the bolt in the wood like the rest of the normal ones. So cool. I am by no means a good juggler, but during COVID I have learned a lot more than just the regular 3-ball cascade that I have known for years. Balls are the easiest, not just any balls, but get something with a bit more weight, that are easy to grasp and not very bouncy. Don't learn with patent balls, like I did. Almost broke my fingers. D. Tennis balls are too light and too bouncy. I guess baseballs, softballs or cricket balls would work, or just get some actual juggling balls. Beanbags or hacky sacks, is that the word? Footbag, are good alternatives and can be made easily. I would not recommend scarves, as someone mentioned, or balled up socks. Socks are too light and bouncy. Scarves are of course possible, but that would not translate well to juggling anything else, since they are so light and fly like scarves. Smile. Starting with balls makes it easy to move on to other objects that do not spin when thrown. Juggling pins is another matter altogether. Also, look for Taylor Tries from YouTube. She has some really good basic juggling tutorials. Writing a story. You can basically create a whole world that fits your interests and have characters living and exploring it, and all you need is your imagination. And the best part is that you can always change what you don't like. Honestly, I have probably spent days just imagining random stuff and creating complex stories and characters. Anything is possible, and it's so fun to explore and create. I always create stories, but I never write them. I can erase things immediately in my mind, and if I want to forget about a particularly cringy plot point, I can just wait a few days and it's gone forever. You reminded me of a TV show I used to watch called Magic Secrets Revealed. The masked magician would reveal how magic tricks were done. I was into magic as a kid, so I loved that show. Glad to discover they have a YouTube channel, and most tricks all you need are a deck of cards. If you're into cards, dealt, trailer, documentary of a master card mechanic who happens to be blind. Amorman, a true story and other lies by Derek Delgadio, memoir of a magician and card mechanic who worked as a crooked card dealer in illegal underground card games in Hollywood. Podcast interview with the author, From Card Cheat to Illusionist, magician Derek Delgadio. Hope this feeds your interest in cards. Playing the kalimba. It's a tiny little handheld thumb piano and it sounds like a music box. It only costs $20 to get, and you can play your first song in a matter of days even if you've never played music before. One of the easiest instruments to learn, but such beautiful results. 2 or 3 tutorial videos on YouTube and you're good to go. The community is still relatively tiny and it's a really unknown instrument. Rock painting. Painting rocks is a sweet hobby for people who love being creative, and who like a more quiet way to spend their free time. Painting rocks can be done in a variety of ways, from faces, landscapes, shapes, and patterns. Just find some nice rocks. River stones work well, to paint some stones in whatever way you like. I've been restoring old faded lawn ornaments, gnomes, statues. Same concept. Really, acrylic paints. Let it all cure then seal with a clear enamel. I get about $70 to $100 per. And I've got 2 cowboy statues in the wings that will bring $1,500 each. I didn't think of that. I bought one of those Greek-style busts from Walmart that had ships in it and just repainted it with acrylic and spray paint, a combination of gold, orange, and blue, and it looked so cool. Ended up buying a few things from the thrift store to paint that I never got around to doing afterwards, because it was so satisfying. One thing was white swans that I was tempted to paint black. But then they were just pretty enough as is, that I'm like, I can always paint them later. Then there's a plastic horse I want to add wings to, so that's a larger project than just painting. I did get a cheap wood sign at the dollar store that had the cathedral windows cut outside, and removed the oval that said family, sanded down the glue bits, and repainted it black recently. Might see about painting some clear plastic from toy boxes into a stained glass vibe that can be attachable somehow. There's a tree I've been trying to make out of cardboard, paper tubes and clay as well, but it's been shelved for a few years. Restaurant cardboard paper tubes from tin foil and plastic wrap are sturdy AF, with sturdy AF plastic ends. If you're getting into it solely for finding edibles, then sure, you can put yourself at higher risk, but I find enjoyment out of trying to identify different species, or variants of the same species. Finding a rainbow of colors in one hike is pretty satisfying. As far as I've read, there's no known species to cause poisoning through skin contact in the US. But always wash one's hands afterward anyhow. Goal of mine is to compile enough good photos of personal finds to print and frame. This is an odd one, but hear me out. Go to www.findagrave.com. This site has over 190 million graves documented by volunteers. Odds are many of your relatives are there. People go to graveyards and take pictures of the gravestone or marker. The inscription on the gravestone is also listed. In addition, people can send a request to find a grave of one of their loved ones that are buried near where you live. After my wife passed away from pancreatic cancer, I started volunteering my time to go out and do this. For whatever reason, I find it peaceful to walk the graveyards, and I especially like going to the really old cemeteries. It's also good exercise. If you are a genealogy buff, you should visit this site even if you don't want to actually document anything. I took your suggestion and decided to look up my grandpa's grave, which has no pictures. But then I looked up my grandma's, and I think a cousin of hers uploaded some old pictures of her as a teenager, young woman, and now I am sitting here with tears of happiness in my eyes because otherwise I would have never seen them. Thanks for making my evening. 3. Not sure if this qualifies as a hobby, but cooking. For whatever reason, I developed a strong interest in cooking, and it's been really fun. And there's a pragmatic element to it, where you eat what you make, so it's a practical hobby as well. And the great thing about it is that there are so many levels and varieties to cooking food that it really appeals to an incredibly wide range of people. Cooking not only for yourself, but others, has saved me from the drain of the pandemic. Never before did I think I'd care to know the difference between Kraft Parmesan cheese and authentic Parmigiano Reggiano, or that adding pasta water to a sauce thickens it. Now I have new kitchen utensils, own multiple cookbooks, and get excited to make new meals. I have never been into cooking, baking, etc. I never watched cooking shows or anything like that. Then I randomly saw a video from Preppy Kitchen, and now I bake something new at least once a week. My wife loves it. I don't watch any other coming videos except his. I've gotten requests for things, but I'm like Preppy Kitchen doesn't make that, so I can't. The cost associated with disc golfing can easily explode once you factor in different types of discs, collector discs, baskets, backpacks, etc. My wife's best friend and her husband run a successful disc golfing store in our area. They've only been full steam ahead for about a year and already clocked in over $300,000 in profit. Granted, there were other variables, hosting tournaments, events, that led to that profit. It can be expensive if one wants, yeah, but most people are fine with like 3 good discs, 10 if they're really into it. 10 discs and a bag is like $200 and then you're set for many rounds of golf, replacing the occasional disc. That's less than a bowling ball and shoes, and 1 round of bowling. But if you don't want to spend money, it's a very cheap hobby. Sudoku puzzles. There's a huge number of them available online, easy to learn and get into, and fun when you start learning some of the techniques used to solve. You can eventually move on to harder, more complex puzzles, like Killer Sudoku, where they have cages in the cells where the digits in the cell need to total the number given in the cage. Or my personal favorite, Chess Sudoku, where digits can't be either a knight's move or a king's move away from the last. I wanted to learn to make marbles, so I started lamp working. Started off making beads on a hothead, single fuel map gas torch, learning control, chemistry, etc. Closest place for classes is over 100 miles away, so I watched YouTube videos, read forums, and experimented. I now have a oxypropane setup and a kiln. I make beads and marbles and recently small sculptural pieces. Here are a couple. Imgur quit uploading after 2 for some reason. http://imgur.com/a/s8yen. As boring as it might sound, collecting coins is an extremely interesting hobby, especially when you indulged in it as a kid, then completely forgot about it, and later discovered your old collection many years down the line. I came across the little green box I used to store my coins in, and it made me reflect on how so many different denominations of coins have gone out of use in India. 5 paise was a trifle back then, but safe in my collection. These coins are priceless. I do feel like antiquing will make a comeback in the next 2 years or so. I see more and more young people filling their homes with items that they got from non-retail methods. With the prices of retail furniture rising, and a raw material shortage to boot, more people will look to second-hand goods. Currently right now, the mid-century modern look is roaring back into the public interest. Getting an cool accent chair, or a designy bookcase that just needs a bit of love and polish is all the rage. The last 2 months, 2 people have asked if I wanted to go to a flea market with them, when I had never been asked that question in my playing the kalimba. It's a handheld musical instrument where you pluck at metal tabs with your thumbs, and it creates a pretty, relaxing sound. You don't need to have a background in music to start playing this instrument. I basically figured it out myself when I bought mine. It's easy to get the hang of. It's also inexpensive. My kalimba cost me under $40. You could find a bunch of options on Amazon alone. I have more hobbies than I can count, but the cheap-easy ones are juggling, yo-yoing, lock-picking with a paper clip and a uni-ball pen pocket clip was fun, knife, axe throwing, have to find the right distance, learning new types of knots, monkey ball was the coolest one I made, fishing, cheap rod, reel combo, and a couple rooster tails. Tennis is a good one that doesn't cost a lot since there are free courts all over the place. I have more but they get pricier and aren't super easy. My wife jokes with friends about all the things I've tried and got bored with.